good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Whenever you may be catching us, I'm excited that you have chosen to spend a little bit of your time here with us today. I'm Richard Watkins, and this is the Richard Watkins Podcast, your place for just conversations where we hope you leave from knowing more than you did before you entered. I'm your host, Richard Watkins, and all of this is made possible due to the sponsorship of the Science Policy Action Network, your partners in thought. Check them out at www.span-inc.org. That's span-inc.org. So without further ado, we have with us an amazing guest. I have been following this individual on social media platforms for quite some time. He is known as the Bull City political nerd, or Kenneth Gibbs. Kenneth Gibbs, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining us on the Richard Watkins Podcast.
Yes, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. So tell us a little bit about who you are, and how you ended up becoming the Bull City political nerd, and how did you land on that name? You could have chosen any name in the world, but like, how did you land on Bull City political nerd?
Yes. So I grew up, was born in Richmond. Grew up a lot of my K through 12 education was in Graham County schools. Moved here to Durham, hence the Bull City part, um, in 2009. And, been involved in politics in different ways. For instance, college. Is during that time I got into student government, the student senator for 3 years. And off and on, I have been, you know, thinking about doing something like this, a page where, informing people, because I have been doing it through my personal page for quite a while. And, decided one day just to branch out and try something different. And on a whim, created a Facebook page. Um, And the name was just a sort of a random happenstance thing, and think about what to call it, because I like to nerd out on politics, and so that's how the name came about. So yeah.
So, are you are you trained as a journalist? Are you trained as a political scientist? What is your background?
Yes, I graduated from North Carolina State University with a major in computer science. So no, that's not my major at all. Um, and I was like one class away from a minor in political science. Um, so yeah, that's my background, my educational background. But no, I'm haven't wasn't trained as a journalist. So
All right, so that's just really interesting, and I think that informs like my next set of questions. Like, what about journalism, right, or the current state of journalism that made you say, "Wait, I need to participate in this as a computer scientist"? What was missing in the coverage that you felt that you can come in and just kind of, help fill the gap a little bit? What is missing from the conversation?
um yeah, for most of my work on this page is not necessarily original journalism. It's more so just that's more of an aggregator. And so one thing that just goes through I think a lot of people's minds is going through the NNO or WRO or WTVD. It's a lot of stuff to sift through. So you got sports, weather. So I just thought there was a niche out there for political news and not just um, general political news like what's happening nationally, but really a focus on local and state news, political news, and then with a further focus on how it affects an individual. And so that's sort of my focus and my leaning when I post stuff.
So how do you decide what to coverage? I mean, there's a lot to pull from, and like, how do you decide what is going to be the story that people need to know about? How do you figure out what are the top stories?
Um, yeah, I try to make it focus on the individual. So a lot of stuff that affects individuals, and then with a try and focus even more on local news. So stuff happening in Durham, so Durham and Durham County, and then state level, and then to I guess a lesser extent national because that's already pretty accurately covered. And yeah, just trying to get news out there. And then I do some original stuff. For instance, one of the things I did was look at how the tax rates over time, the property tax rates have increased and then compared it to inflation. So some of the stuff just stuff I'm interested in, questions I have myself. So I end up researching it and then repackaging it and putting it into a post. And so yeah.
Folks always say that all politics is local, and that can be true. When you are posting on state, local, and federal issues, what do you see people are most drawn to? Are people most drawn to local things, or are people more drawn to federal stories, from what you're seeing on your page and in your work?
Yeah, most definitely national. Um, a post about something that the county is doing may get a tenth of the engagement of what something with Trump or Biden may be doing. Um, I can understand some of it because you know there's big things that happen nationally, but um, the local stuff does impact people quite heavily. So yeah.
So when folks are saying oftentimes all politics are local, they're oftentimes referring to where you are going to feel something more immediately,
Hmm.
right? So if your local government creates policy, that policy will be felt quicker by you than if the federal level. I mean, is that even completely true? I mean, you also feel federal policy legislation pretty immediately as well? So tell me a little bit about that saying. As somebody who's been in politics for a while, right? And now put forward content on the federal, state, and local levels, where does that sentiment all politics is local come from?
I would say all politics has a local impact. Um, just thinking about it. For instance, there's a federal decision that has been reversed by the courts temporarily that impacts the National Institutes of Health and their funding. Um, if that were to go through, for instance, that would decimate a lot of the local um, colleges like Duke and UNC, and then that would have knock-on effects, local budgets and employment. So I think all politics has a local impact, and I think that's where that phrase is sort of come from.
Makes a lot of sense. And so, what is the since posting and since really getting into what is going on, do you find yourself more knowledgeable and more in tune to things now that you've created this page than you have ever been before? And then also, if I would ask a follow-up question, what has that new insight done to you and your relationships, right? Like, are you the type of person that can kind of ruin a dinner party with like inconvenient information, right? So yeah, have you learned a lot, and then what has that done to you now that you've had that developed that insight?
Definitely. One of the things that given a purpose in life, sometimes it forces you to go deeper. And so, because I have an audience, and it you never want to just let the page go dormant. So it forces you to think about stuff in a different way and um, watch meetings that you normally wouldn't watch. The local meetings, um, read agendas. And so pre 2019, that's actually when it was founded. Um, I would most of it just depend on headlines and stuff. But now I sort of have to go um, onto YouTube and watch the meetings and watch the council meetings, watch the school board meetings. And so, yeah. And then to your second question, no, I try to keep things light and not overburden people with my political knowledge. But a lot of times people do ask, my opinion on stuff. So for sure.
So what has that been like, turning into like the go-to source, for information? What has that been like, being that person that people are asking, what is going on at the state level, or what is going on City Hall Durham? What has that what has that transition been like? You hold a lot of power. They say knowledge is power, right? People are
Mhm.
coming to you for knowledge. What is it? What does that feel like? And what do you feel like your responsibility is? I guess with great power comes great responsibility, right? So, what does that feel like?
Yeah, it's definitely been surprising. Although pre 2019, I was also known for politics, but even more so now, and just to that responsibility of making sure the information I give is accurate, because sometimes um, yeah, you don't want people leaving a post misinformed about what's going on. So I think it's important that we ensure that the information comes out is accurate and as well founded and also balanced, because of course I'm one person, and so it can't necessarily be unbiased, but it can be fair towards the size of an issue.
Has uh has this work changed who you are, and as far as politically, right? You were talking about biases earlier, and biases come from you know held beliefs that then take in and apply to like every single thing. Sometimes you don't even notice it, but with new information, you were then prompted to kind of change the way you look at things, and now you're bringing in a lot of new information. How has that new information changed the way that you look at politics?
Um, it definitely has changed. For instance, I think one of the things that's changed is just how just my understanding of how it works, especially local government. Um, it changed, my view of zoning and um, housing policy. Not just on how it works, because before 2019, I just didn't really know much about zoning, and it sort of forces you to learn that. But then also, change my mind on some of the issues, like on housing, for instance. Become more of a supply person and realizing you have to increase supply to build housing and not necessarily lower prices, but keep prices from skyrocketing, for instance. So, the information comes in and you can't not change your mind based on the information. So, yeah, that's how I would approach it.
I guess you could look at it two ways, right? You can get this information and you can feel, kind of jaded, like, everything is just messed up. Or you can
Yeah.
feel like, oh, wait, I recognize opportunities that I can now apply myself with the hopes I can make things better. Which bucket do you fall in now? Are you kind of like jaded, the system is messed up, or are you like, wow, I didn't know this opportunity existed, and now I'm going to seize upon it to hopefully make a positive impact?
No, I definitely the latter. Just because you start to notice patterns. Watching a lot of these meetings, and one pattern I've noticed is that an organized group can, especially at the local level, which is why local government is really powerful. Organized interests, which basically is groups of people, can really make some policy changes. Um, One example I do cite is Preserve Rural Durham. They have a lot of advocacy towards environmental issues, and that has resulted in some positive steps um, towards some more environmental protections. Um, there's been some follow up on like blasting concerns of East Durham residents. Um, and then I'm in the actual group, but I believe it's Durham Policing. They have advocated a lot. I think Durham Brown Policing and Durham for All, I think both have been instrumental, for instance, in um, advocating for the HEART program, which has been pretty popular. Um, so yeah, I think just being organized and packing, for instance, city council chambers can have a powerful impact on policy.
So that's really interesting, right? So like let's kind of take this apart. I mean, I've been able to kind of sit in on a few city council meetings and in various municipalities. And one of the things that is really useful is when you're coming in and you're hoping to engage the council, if you have some sort of idea what the culture, what it feels like, and that then will better help you communicate whatever message that you're trying to communicate, right? And so I kind of want to just take this time now to kind of, I don't know, let people in on like how stuff kind of works. So first and foremost, if you are a resident of Durham, right, you're both impacted by policies at the county level and at the municipal level. That's correct, right?
Yep, for
Um,
sure.
and if, all right, for instance, you are wanting to address a concern at the county level, where
Mhm.
would an individual go specifically to address county level concerns?
Yes, for that, for sure, the best resource is Board of County Commissioners.
Okay.
Um, and their information is on the county website. But then also, if it's a school concern, of course, Durham Public Schools and the Board of Education.
That's a great distinction. So, educational issues are also handled at the county level, and that go to resource for that is the school board or the Durham County Board of Education, correct?
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, so those are two things. Now, if your concern is a municipal concern, your go-to is what, the city council or the city manager? Or are those one and the same? What do you?
Um, yeah, I would say, um, I mean, you could, of course, contact the city manager or the county manager for the county issues. Um, but I would say the elected officials, because they're there to represent you and your interests. It's probably a better avenue. Um, yeah, so because really, we don't hire the residents don't hire the county manager or the city manager or the superintendent. We hire, the city council, the county commissioners, and the school board members. And so, yeah, more direct, I would say go to elected officials for sure.
Right. All right. So basically, all your governments are set up like corporations where they have a board that votes on things, but then you have an executive that manages things. And in regards to those three bodies that you mentioned, the city, Board of Education, and the county, I guess the executive at those levels are the superintendent, the city manager, and the county manager.
Yeah, for sure.
And all of those individuals are appointed by those voting bodies, which are the school board or the board of education, the city council, and the county commissioners.
Yep, for sure.
Her and do the elections for all of those bodies, do they happen at the same time, or are they offset? When can folks think, about like, all right, when do they need to start paying attention? Wait, all right, let's back up. When do folks need to start paying attention? All the time, or is there a time when they should pay attention more than others? It's hard to stay locked in on politics, but when is the best time to start paying attention?
For city residents, odd years, typically around July, is a time I would recommend start looking into races for mayor and the council. Um, so that'd be this year, for instance, in June or July. Um, Presidential years are your county commissioners. So we just had an election in 2024. All five county commissioners will be reelected or changed or whatever in 2028. And then Board of Education is the most tricky. Um, it is every 2 years on even years. And those are during the primary election. So in Mayish of every 2 years. And I guess the best resource is the Board of Elections, the Durham County Board of Elections. Um, I think there's a section called Current Elections, and it always has the upcoming election listed there. They're always preparing for some type of election. So, yeah.
So also though, in a place like Durham, but I'm pretty sure that this happens everywhere in the United States. Politics and having your issues heard aren't exclusively contained within the chambers of the county commissioners, the board of education, or the city council. You oftentimes have an opportunity to have issues heard while groups are organized.
Yeah.
And Durham is big. You touched on some of those. I think what I'll have you the question I'll have you ask is, what is a political PAC? What is a PAC? Like, what's a super PAC? I hear those terms, people hear those terms all the time. And it's hard to really know what to make of those terms. So let's just start with the term PAC. What is a PAC? And how could you have your issues heard or validated through work with a PAC?
Yeah, PAC is basically a political action committee. Um, and it's a way for groups of people to basically organize financially and um, basically like the groups of people that I mentioned earlier that has a lot of power to help move issues, but then also PACs are a way to assist in electing those people, those people that you want into office. And and during like the big three are the People's Alliance, the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, and the Friends of Durham. And there are others, but those are like the three big electoral ones that are focused most on electoral politics. There are other groups, like I mentioned, Durham for All and Durham Bound Policing, that are more issue focused. But those are the big three.
And so, and I think that's also like, really, really important, because as an individual, when you're talking about all politics are local, so every bit of politics impacts you locally, it's also important to understand how those folks get to be in those positions that they are in. And you were just talking about how PACs can aid in getting people elected? What role? Because I mean, if I were just to talk to my grandfather about politics, I mean, he and I would just talk about the responsibility that the individual voter has in making somebody get into office. You know, one vote, then that person. But you're saying that it's not simply just that. There are also political action committees that are very, very instrumental in making someone a leader, or elected official. How does that process even work? What does that even look like?
For a lot of political action committees, one of the big things is funding. A lot of local candidates, all candidates need money, but um, one of the things that political action committees do is at the polls, you may see like a poll worker. Um, well, I'm not sure if they're poll workers, but people, outside the polls, handing out green sheets or yellow sheets. A lot of us have seen those. Um, and then also mailers. You may get a bunch of mailers from different PACs. So a lot of it's getting the word out about candidates that individual PAC supports. And then once they're in office, then there's a structure by which they are held accountable to that PAC's mission. And so, yeah.
So, all right. So, what happens to a candidate if they don't get the support of those three organizations that you mentioned? I mean, is it possible for a candidate to win without the support of those PACs, or are those PACs just that influential in regards to elected politics?
Yeah, I would say they're influential, but it's not impossible. Um, yeah, there have been quite a few candidates who've won outside of um, the PACs, and without a major PAC endorsement. A lot of that boils down to just having the people power, to sort of match the existing PACs. Um, because yeah, you got to get your word out about that you exist, and get to know people and get support. And so PACs are a way to short not to shortcut that, but ease in that. Um, but yeah, you definitely can get elected without a PAC for sure.
That's really interesting. And, I mean, I guess it's also a way for individuals who don't necessarily have uh, a political office to still kind of influence politics or influence issues regarding the folks that they represent through PACs. Now, if you don't know this, just let me know. But I think the next level up that people here are often about are super PACs. Are you familiar with super PACs, and what's the difference between a PAC and a super PAC?
Um, I think the main thing is the source of revenue. Um, but don't quote me on that, because I think super PACs are more so they are they allow corporate donations, whereas PACs are more so individuals. I think that's the difference, but don't quote me on that. But they operate in a similar fashion in that they help bundle money together, and instead of individuals donating to a candidate, um, individuals in super PACs, individuals and corporations can donate to an organization, which then spends on behalf of a whole range of candidates.
Wow. Okay. So you can donate to an organization behind an issue, and then that organization then donates to a whole range of candidates that fall kind of under that umbrella of an issue.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, now I can see why you can easily nerd out on politics, right? Because like the deeper you dig, the more you're like, wait, hold on, what? Wait, hold on, what? Goodness gracious. You must bump into people all the time that say, like, I had no idea things work that way.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then on top of that, not only do you have PACs, but a lot of the quote unquote PACs have split up into they have C4, 501c4 parts of it, which are basically just issue based. So we want to advocate for, you know, heart program or safer schools. And then they also may have a charity arm, the 501c3. So the same org may be in different configurations. So
How is that useful for the organization?
well, it allows them to do multiple things under the same sort of umbrella name. So the PAC, directly advocates for candidates. And then the C4 could just focus on issues. And then the C3 can um, just do more so of a charity focus and assistance. Um, and really, it's maybe because of election law and tax law that this is needed. But yeah,
Yeah, no, that's
can
this is
can
this,
be complicated.
no, it's all good. It's all good. Like I'm just learning a lot. Like it's like we're peeling back this onion, and like I don't know that I'm gonna ask the next question until you say what you say. I'm like, wait, hold on, let me learn a little bit about this. All right, I want to just go back to your journalism aspect of you, right? So I think we're just at just a unique time, just globally, right?
Mhm.
Politics, technology, innovation. We are at a time where we've never been before. So, looking back, what has been, I don't know, the most interesting story to you? And the story that when you saw it, you were like, oh, this is going to change the game forever. What is the biggest story that, I don't know, over the past 2 years you felt that you covered?
Um, I'd probably say above all is the re-election of Donald Trump. Um, just because a year ago, um, we just weren't, at least I wasn't thinking of someone with, that had been convicted um, getting reelected. So, um, and just his reelection has changed politics a lot. And so I think that would be probably the most impactful story I've covered, for sure.
Do you think it's changed local politics?
Not hasn't changed it. Well, actually, it has changed it. For instance, there's a big immigration piece that's definitely, um, sadly coming to light. Um, and then, unfortunately, maybe a um, yet to be realized funding piece, especially for parts of the city that depends on, federal grants. So yeah, I definitely will have a big impact if that were to come to pass.
Well, staying on, journalism, right? Journalism, and regardless of how, you define it, plays a huge role in the overall disposition of a people, overall disposition of society. What role do you think media? I know that's a huge term, right? But I'm gonna just use it. I don't care. And you're included in the media now, right? Um, what role and responsibility does the media have to society, and where do you see its shortcomings?
I think the main role of media is to inform and then to try and hold to account people in power. Make sure that what they're saying is true. Um, and then to dig as much as they can to find the truth. And not necessarily the fault of the individual reporters, but there has been a significant defunding of local journalism. Um, and so yeah, we definitely feel it at the local level. Um, I think that there's a responsibility of someone to cover um, local news, and there has been some good local reporters, but we definitely could use the numbers we had back in the day. I think that would help a lot.
I think that's where you came from, right? This kind of this constant, what is the word I'm looking for? Not really investing in local media, news coverage, reporting, and so on and so forth. And so it's really like, well, somebody's got to do it. And so you decided to throw on the cape kind of thing, and you decided to, that's where you think you came from, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Like you wouldn't be posting if someone else already was posting. And I can tell you, just as someone who consumes your content, there's not really that many people putting out information on like local and state happenings like that. And I know that that should not be the case, but that is the case.
Yeah, of course. There is, stations I mentioned before, like WRO, the NNO. They do it, but they also have a profit motive. That's not necessarily an evil thing, but it does affect the type of stuff you cover. You're not gonna necessarily cover the and highlight the boring stuff. You're gonna highlight the stuff that you know typically bad or negative, and so I think that's where sort of me as someone who does this on the side helps. Not necessarily them, but the viewer. Um, because I don't necessarily have as much of a profit motive as a WRO or News Observer would have. Um, so I can go in the weeds on an issue that may not get much traffic or much clicks, but it will enrich whoever reads it for sure.
Yeah, like zoning, right? I mean, zoning
Yep.
is something that impacts, everyone. If you want to build something, right, you're going to have to really appreciate zoning and what you can and cannot put in these spaces. But that's not something that will get like a lot of clicks, right? If you put up a piece on zoning, right? But you have to go into these meetings like you were also like you were just saying, what is it like sitting in on some of these meetings? Is it boring?
Um, I would say as a political nerd, no, they typically aren't. At least most of it. Some of it can be. And that's where I'm thankful that the all three branches, not branches, but all three uh, government entities, they do streaming of the meetings, and so that really helps. Uh, so I can scrub through the meeting and see what I need to see. But actually sitting in person in meetings, it's actually nice to see government in action. Um, yeah, there have been some interesting moments for sure in sitting in meetings and um, not necessarily for the run-of-the-mill everyday things, but there are some been contentious issues that um, I definitely was glad I was in the in the meeting in person. So
Wait, can you give like a specific, because it looked like you saw something and it made you laugh. What has been, I don't want to say like the craziest, but like what has been like the most memorable moment from one of these meetings that you've been able to sit in? I know everybody who has a TikTok account has seen, city council meetings or county commission meetings that have just gone off the hinges, right? But you know, has there been a memorable moment for you having sat in on some of these meetings, and what was that?
For me, yeah, I probably won't mention the one that made me made me chuckle, but probably the most powerful one was back in 2020 when we had the Maduga Terrace um, carbon monoxide issue, and the residents of that community packed the chambers, basically saying, we need assistance, we need help, and that was definitely a powerful meeting to be in on. Um,
So wait,
and
break it down really quick because somebody's going to see this and not have a connection with what you're talking about. So in 2020, what happened? And then the residents of McDougal Terrace. So yeah, tell us just really quick what
yeah, and going back a bit in 2019, things around December, there was an issue with the heaters in McDougal Terrace, and they were aging. The place is in need of some renovations and was in need of pretty significant renovations then. And the heating units started leaking combustion byproducts into the living spaces. And that sort of culminated in, um, I believe, a child needing to go to the ER because of CO poisoning. So um, after that, it was determined that through inspections of different units that there was a big problem. And so it ended up, I think it was like 2 or 3 months of residents staying in hotels, um, just while they sorted that issue out. And so um, that was a nice time where the community sort of came together and assisted and provided meals and all that. So yeah, that was a very proud moment for Durham in spite of that tragedy. So
and that is huge, and it really does show you the importance of your governments, your local governments, obviously, county governments, and it also that story also shows what can happen when folks come together. And yeah, thank you for sharing that, and obviously thank you for what you do. Um, it might often feel like it's a thankless job, but if you didn't know before this interview here, there are people out there who really appreciate what you do, and I being one of them. Because information is just absolutely critical, and we should not assume that folks have the information. We should constantly try to create platforms so that information can be distributed. And thanks to the Bull City Political Nerd, we have one more of said platforms. Um, I'm not gonna let you go just yet because what always happens to me is I get somebody on the show, and I've had scientists, I've had representatives, I've had journalists, you're the journalist. um, and I always end up like second guessing myself, questioning myself on whether I should have asked this question or that question, or like, oh, I had this person on and I might not have them on ever again. I should have asked this question. And I know no matter what I do, how much I prepare, there's going to be a question that I just don't ask, right? And so you coming in might have had a topic that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask about, right? So I wanted to turn the tables and allow you to kind of ask yourself a question that I should have asked. And then, as soon as you ask it, go ahead and answer it, right? So, yeah, what question were you hoping that I'd ask you?
um, I would probably say the I guess the need for discussion. And I guess my role in facilitating that. Um, I think one of the things that helps the page stay active in Facebook's algorithm is the fact that there are diverse viewpoints on that page, um, and they range actually quite a bit. Surprisingly for a Durham focused page. And I think it helps discussion. And then what I try to do is, ensure that the discussion that is happening is, respectful and courteous, but I do allow it to be, passionate because I think that's oftentimes how you get not necessarily agreement, but understanding. Because people don't necessarily have to agree, but they can um, do so and do so passionately, but um, not devolving into like, um, name calling or ad hominems. So yeah, I think discussion is really good.
The discussion is complicated though, right? I mean, discussion is essential for effective politics.
Mhm.
But one of the things you don't talk about is politics. I know you've heard that before, right? So, religion and politics, those are two things that you don't discuss. In fact, conversations about politics are oftentimes screened different by social media algorithms. Conversations about politics are oftentimes discouraged in professional settings. Communication of one's political views, depending on what job you have,
Mhm.
is frowned upon. And so I agree. And listen, I tip my hat to you. How does that actually really work? Because we do live in a world where there are consequences tethered to politics. So how can you wade into the waters of political discussion with consequences being real as they are?
Yeah. I think it's the way, just being smart about how you approach it in certain situations. Um, yeah, because there are certain jobs, like you said, where it's not a good idea to just be out front for your political views. But I do think that there are certain instances where, you know, not in those settings, you can definitely discuss. Um, and it really depends on the person you're talking with. If you know such and such always flies off the handle and um, it always ends in an argument when you discuss your views with that person, maybe that's not the person uh, to discuss with. Um, and then there's some things you just can't discuss or like debate. Certain things that are core to you. Um, yeah, sometimes you just it's about wisdom about what, when, and where to debate, and um, it's just how I approach it. You know,
Hey, listen, if it was easy, everybody would do it. If it was
yeah.
easy, everybody would do it. That's why you're doing the important work. Where can people find you? Where can people keep up with you? You mentioned Facebook, and I'm assuming Facebook, Bull City Political Nerd. Where else can they find your content?
Yeah. I also sort of simulcast my posts on Blue Sky. So Blue Sky, if you search Bull City Political Nerd, it'll come up. Um, yeah, and those are two platforms.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for having a great conversation. We touched on a wide variety of topics. We touched on journalism. We touched on political action committees. We touched on federal, state, and local politics and how you can have the conversation about politics, which is so very important. Thank you so much, not only for what you do, Mr. Gibbs, but thank you so much for joining us at the Richard Watkins Podcast. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.